The sky turned red on a Tuesday morning. Park Do-yeon was drinking his coffee in the military command center when the first reports came in. Strange objects were entering Earth's atmosphere. Thousands of them. They were not meteors. They were ships. The Valen Empire had watched humanity for decades. They had studied human wars, human technology, and human weakness. To them, Earth was just another planet to conquer. They had done this to 1,000 worlds before. The process was always the same. Show overwhelming force. Kill enough people to break their spirit. Then take what you want. Admiral Corrin sat in his command chair aboard the Imperial flagship. He looked at the blue planet on his screen and felt nothing. To him, humans were like insects. Primitive creatures who had not yet learned their place in the galaxy. He gave the order without hesitation. Begin the cleansing. The plasma bombs fell like rain. Seoul vanished in a flash of white light. Then Tokyo, then Beijing, then Mumbai. The bombs did not stop. They fell on New York, London, Paris, Moscow, Sydney. Every major city on Earth burned within the first hour. Park Do-yeon watched the screens in horror. The satellite feeds showed continents on fire. The death toll climbed so fast that the computers could not keep up. 1 billion dead. Then 2 billion. Then 3. The numbers kept rising. His hands shook, but his mind stayed clear. He had trained for war his entire life. He knew that panic would kill more people than the bombs. He grabbed the emergency radio and began giving orders. All military units. This is Commander Park. Execute Protocol Omega. I repeat. Protocol Omega. Get everyone underground. Now. Protocol Omega was a plan that nobody ever expected to use. It was created for the worst possible situation. Nuclear war. Asteroid impact. Alien invasion. The plan was simple. Abandon the surface. Save who you can. Survive. Across the world, military bases opened their underground bunkers. Subway systems became shelters. Mine shafts became hiding places. People ran into the earth like ants escaping a flood in the city of Daijin. Dr. Kim Yuna was working in her laboratory when the alarms started. She was a quantum physicist, one of the smartest people on the planet. Her research was classified at the highest level, Project Prometheus, a weapon so powerful that even she was afraid of it. She grabbed her laptop and the encrypted hard drives. Around her, the building shook as explosions lit up the horizon. Her assistant, a young man named Baek Jimin, pulled her toward the emergency elevator. "We have to go now," he shouted. They descended into the bunker beneath the university. It was designed to hold 500 people. By the time the doors sealed, over 2,000 had crowded inside. They could hear the bombs falling above them. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Children cried. Adults prayed. Kim Yuna found a quiet corner and opened her laptop. Even now, her mind was working. The aliens had technology far beyond anything on Earth, faster than light travel. Energy weapons. Shields that could stop nuclear missiles. But they also had weaknesses. Everything had weaknesses. She just needed to find them. The bombardment lasted for 72 hours. When it finally stopped, 7 billion people were dead. The surface of Earth was a wasteland of ash and fire. Radiation storms swept across the continents. The oceans boiled near the impact zones. Cities that had stood for centuries were now nothing but craters. The Valen Empire declared victory. Admiral Corrin reported to his emperor that Earth had been pacified. A small garrison was left behind to monitor the planet. The main fleet moved on to their next conquest. To them, Earth was finished. Humanity was broken. They were wrong. Deep beneath the Taebaek Mountains, Park Do-yeon stood in the command center of the largest underground bunker in Asia. The facility was designed to survive a nuclear war. It had its own power supply, water recycling systems, and food production capabilities. It could support 50,000 people for decades. Similar bunkers existed around the world. The Swiss Alps, the Rocky Mountains, the Ural Mountains, the Australian outback. Humanity had always feared its own destruction. They had built shelters against that fear. Now those shelters were saving what remained of the species. The reports came in slowly over the following weeks. The news was devastating. 7 billion dead. But also miraculous. 200 million alive. Scattered across the planet in underground shelters, submarines, remote islands, and hidden valleys. Enough to survive. Enough to rebuild. Park Do-yeon gathered his officers in the war room. Their faces were hollow with grief. Many had lost their families. All had lost their homes. But in their eyes, he saw something that gave him hope. Anger. Cold, burning anger. The aliens think we are finished, he said. They think they broke us. But they made a mistake. They left survivors. He pulled up a map on the screen. It showed the bunker networks, the hidden military bases, the submarine routes that connected them. We have resources. We have knowledge. We have time. And we have something the aliens will never understand. He looked at each of them in turn. We have hate. We have the kind of hate that will keep us alive for 100 years, if that is what it takes. They killed our families. They burned our cities. They murdered 7 billion innocent people. His voice dropped to a whisper. We will make them pay. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday, we will build a fleet. We will find their weaknesses. And we will show them what happens when you try to kill the human race. In her small room, Kim Yuna listened to the broadcast. She looked at the files on her laptop. Project Prometheus. A theoretical weapon that could destroy stars. She had hoped it would never be built. Now, she hoped she could build it fast enough. Outside, the radiation storms howled across the dead surface of Earth. The stars shone cold and distant above the clouds of ash. Somewhere out there, the Valen Empire was celebrating another easy victory. They had no idea what was coming. 15 years passed beneath the Earth. 15 years of darkness, hard work, and cold fury. The survivors built a new world underground, hidden from the eyes of their conquerors. Park Do-yeon was now called the General. His hair had turned gray, and lines of stress marked his face. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was still focused on one goal: revenge. Every decision he made, every resource he allocated, every person he trained, was aimed at that single purpose. The bunker networks had grown into vast underground cities. Engineers had dug tunnels connecting facilities across continents. Magnetic rail trains carried supplies and people through the darkness beneath the oceans. What had started as scattered shelters had become a hidden civilization. The surface was still dangerous. Radiation levels remained high in many areas. The Valen garrison had set up monitoring stations around the planet. Satellites watched for any sign of human activity. But the aliens were lazy. They believed Earth was dead. They saw what they expected to see: nothing. Lieutenant Choi Minji led the intelligence division. She was a small woman with cold eyes and a brilliant mind. For 15 years, she had studied the enemy. Her teams had captured Valen scouts, stolen their technology, and learned their secrets. She knew more about the Valen Empire than most Valen did. She stood before the War Council with her latest report. On the screen behind her was a map of the galaxy, marked with thousands of conquered worlds. The Valen Empire controls over 1,200 planets, she said. Their fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. Their population is in the trillions. By any normal measure, we cannot win a war against them. The officers shifted uncomfortably. They knew the numbers. The odds were impossible. But, Minji continued, they have a weakness. Their entire civilization depends on 17 pillar worlds. These planets control their faster-than-light communication and travel networks. Destroy the pillars, and the empire falls apart. Admiral Lee Tai-ho leaned forward. He was a former submarine commander, a man who had spent his life thinking about how to strike from hidden positions. The concept interested him. How well defended are these pillars? Heavily, Minji admitted, but not invincible. The Valen have never faced a serious threat to their core worlds. They are overconfident. Their defenses are designed to stop other alien races. not a surprise attack from a species they believe they already killed. General Park nodded slowly. Continue your research. Find every weakness, every blind spot, every opportunity. The science division, Kim Yuna, had assembled the greatest minds humanity had left. They worked in laboratories carved from solid rock, powered by geothermal energy tapped from the Earth's core. Their mission was simple: build weapons that could kill gods. Project Prometheus had evolved over the years. The original concept was a star-killing bomb. Too extreme. Too slow. Kim Yuna had refined it into something more practical. The Prometheus Cascade, a device that could turn the enemy's own technology against them, the Valen. FTL network was like a nervous system connecting their empire. Ships and messages traveled through it at speeds faster than light. But the network was also a vulnerability. If you could introduce the right kind of disruption, you could make the whole system collapse. Every ship in transit would be lost. Every communication would be cut. The Empire would be blind and scattered. She explained the concept to her team late one night. Young engineers and physicists gathered around her, their faces lit by the glow of computer screens. We cannot outfight them, she said. We cannot outproduce them. But we can outsmart them. The cascade will spread through their network like a virus. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. Their own technology will destroy them. One of the engineers, a young woman named Beek Hannah, raised her hand. She had originally trained as a physicist, but her talents had led her in another direction. She was now one of the first volunteers for the genetic modification program. What do you need from us? Kim Yuna smiled grimly. I need time, and I need the fleet to get me close enough to deploy it. The fleet. That was Lee Taiho's domain. For 15 years, he had overseen the construction of the Retribution fleet. In the deepest trenches of the Pacific Ocean, 300 warships. Built in secret, powered by stolen alien technology, the shipyards used geothermal vents to mask their heat signatures. Workers lived in underwater habitats for years at a time, never seeing the sun. They built the ships piece by piece, testing each component in the crushing darkness of the ocean depths. Captain Kong Junho commanded the flagship, the Wrath of Earth. He had been born in the bunkers, one of the first generation to grow up underground. He had never seen a blue sky or felt rain on his face. All he knew was the war that was coming. He had trained for it since he could walk. His crew was the same. Children of the apocalypse. They had grown up on stories of the burning sky, raised on hatred of the aliens who had murdered their world. They were not afraid to die. They were afraid of failing. General Park visited the shipyards 1 year before the planned launch. He walked through the massive construction bays, looking up at the warships that would carry humanity's vengeance to the stars. Lee Taiho walked beside him. We will be ready. The ships are strong. The weapons are tested. The crews are trained. And the people. Park asked, are they ready for what comes next? Taiho was quiet for a moment. They have been ready for 15 years. Every person down here knows someone who died in the bombardment. Parents, children, friends, they are not just soldiers. They are survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes. Ark nodded. He thought about the world above. The dead cities. The poisoned land. The graves of 7 billion people who would never see justice unless the living delivered it. 1 more year, he said. Then we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of.
Oh!
Above them, the Valen garrison continued their lazy patrols. They filed reports about a dead planet and counted the days until their rotation ended. They had no idea that beneath the ash and radiation, an army was waiting. A fleet was ready, and a species they had tried to murder was about to rise from the grave. The ocean erupted at midnight. 300 warships rose from the depths of the Pacific, water streaming from their hulls like tears. For 15 years they had waited in darkness. Now they climbed toward the stars. Captain Kong Junho stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth. Through the view screen, he watched the surface of the ocean fall away below them. For the first time in his life, he saw the sky. It was dark and full of stars. Somewhere out there were the aliens who had tried to kill his species. Somewhere out there was the enemy. All ships report ready, his first officer announced. The fleet is in formation. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. He had trained for this moment since childhood. Every simulation, every exercise, every sleepless night had led to this. The Valen garrison detected them within minutes. Alarms screamed across the alien monitoring stations. Officers who had been sleeping or playing games suddenly found themselves facing impossible readings. Hundreds of ships where there should be nothing. Human ships. Rising from a planet they had declared dead, the garrison commander sent a panicked message to Imperial headquarters. He never finished it. The Retribution fleet. Struck with the fury of 15 years of hatred, human weapons were different from anything the Valen had seen. Kim Yuna's team had combined human engineering with stolen alien technology. The result was something new, something terrifying. Plasma cannons that fired faster than Valen shields could react. Missiles that adapted their approach based on enemy defenses. Electronic warfare systems that turned Valen computers into confused, useless machines. The garrison fleet was destroyed in 23 minutes. 12 Valen warships. Reduced to burning debris orbiting Earth, not a single human ship was lost. Admiral Lee Taiho watched from his command ship, the Silent Vengeance. He had spent decades studying naval warfare, first in Earth's oceans, then in simulations of space combat. The principles were the same. Strike fast. Strike hard. Never give the enemy time to react. Signal from General Park, his communications officer reported. The general's face appeared on the screen. He was in the underground command center, watching the battle through satellite feeds. Excellent work, Admiral. Phase 1 is complete. The fleet is ready for Phase 2, Taiho replied. We are prepared to enter hyperspace on your command. Park paused. This was the moment of no return. Once the fleet left Earth, there was no coming back until the mission was complete. Either they would destroy the Empire, or the Empire would destroy them. There was no middle ground. You have your orders, Park said finally. Good hunting. The fleet aligned for hyperspace jump. 300 ships carrying 100,000 soldiers in the hopes of the human race. Each crew member knew they might never see Earth again. None of them cared. They had a job to do. Lieutenant Buchanan stood in the launch bay of the assault carrier, burning memory. Around her were 500 soldiers of the infiltration corps. They were not ordinary humans anymore. Genetic modifications had made them stronger, faster, and able to survive in environments that would kill normal people. They could breathe in thin atmospheres, resist radiation, and fight for days without sleep. Hannah had volunteered for the program 5 years ago. The modifications had been painful. Some volunteers had died, but those who survived became something new. Weapons in human form. Listen up, she said to her troops. Our job is simple. We go in first. We disable the planetary shields. Then the fleet comes in and finishes the job. Questions. A young soldier raised his hand. What about prisoners? Hannah's expression did not change. There are no prisoners. Not after what they did to Earth. Every Valen soldier is guilty. Every Valen officer is guilty. Every Valen who looked at the burning of 7 billion people and did nothing is guilty. We are not here to capture. We are here to punish. The soldier nodded. He understood. They all understood the hyperspace jump lasted 3 days. When the fleet emerged, they were in orbit above the first pillar world, Vinok Prime, the heart of Valen. Power in the outer sectors. The planet was beautiful from space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked almost like Earth had looked before the bombardment. Millions of Valen lived on its surface. They had families, homes, dreams. They were about to learn that actions have consequences. Hannah's infiltration teams launched in small stealth pods. They entered the atmosphere like meteors, their heat signatures masked by advanced shielding. By the time the Valen detected anything unusual, the teams were already on the ground. The shield generator facility was a massive structure on the northern continent. It was guarded by 1,000 Valen soldiers. Hannah's force numbered only 100. The odds seemed impossible, but the Valen had never fought humans before. Not really. The bombardment of Earth had been a slaughter of civilians, not a battle of soldiers. They had no idea what they were facing. Hannah's team struck at dawn. They moved through the facility like ghosts, killing silently and efficiently. Valen guards died before they could raise alarms. Security systems were hacked and disabled. By the time the base commander realized something was wrong, half his troops were already dead. The final assault was brutal and short. Hannah led the charge into the generator room herself. A Valen officer tried to stop her. She broke his neck with her bare hands and stepped over his body to reach the control console. "Shields are down," she reported over the comm. "Repeat, shields are down." In orbit, Captain Junho received the message. He smiled grimly and gave the order. "All ships, commence bombardment. Show them what we learned from their attack on Earth." The Retribution fleet opened fire. Plasma rained down on Vinok Prime like the wrath of angry gods. Military installations vanished in balls of flame. The planetary defense grid was torn apart piece by piece. But unlike the Valen attack on Earth, this was not random destruction. The fleet targeted military bases, government buildings, and infrastructure. Civilians were spared, where possible. Humanity had not come to commit genocide. They had come to deliver justice. Still, the message was clear. The Valen had awakened something they did not understand. And now that thing was coming for them. The news spread through the Valen Empire like wildfire. Vinok Prime had fallen. A dead species had risen from the grave and struck at the heart of Imperial territory. For the first time in centuries, the Valen knew fear. Admiral Corrin received the report in his private quarters aboard the Imperial flagship. He read it 3 times, unable to believe the words. Humans. The creatures he had ordered exterminated 16 years ago. They had survived. They had rebuilt. And now they were coming for him. He summoned his fleet commanders immediately. The Empire had thousands of warships scattered across the galaxy. Surely they could crush this rebellion quickly. But as the reports kept coming, his confidence began to fade. The second pillar world fell within a week of the first. Then the third. Then the fourth. The human fleet moved with terrifying speed and precision. They seemed to know exactly where to strike and when. Their tactics were unlike anything the Valen had ever faced. Colonel Choi Minji coordinated the intelligence operations from a command ship at the edge of each battle. Her years of study were paying off. She knew the Valen fleet formations, their communication protocols, their command structures. She fed this information to the fleet commanders in real time. "Their reinforcements are coming." From the 7th sector, she reported during the assault on the 5th pillar. "World, they will arrive in 6 hours. We need to finish here and move before they can trap us." Admiral Lee Taiho adjusted his strategy immediately. Instead of a prolonged siege, he ordered a concentrated strike on the planet's FTL relay station. The facility exploded in a brilliant flash of light, cutting off the entire sector from Imperial communications. "Relay destroyed," his tactical officer announced. "The 7th sector fleet is now blind. They have no idea what is happening here." Good Taiho replied. "Move to the next target. We do not stop until this is finished." The human soldiers fought with a fury that shocked the Valen defenders. They took no breaks, showed no mercy, and never retreated. When one soldier fell, another took their place immediately. They were not fighting for glory or territory. They were fighting for the 7 billion dead Captain Kong. Junho led the assault on the 7th pillar world personally. His flagship descended into the atmosphere, unleashing devastating fire on the planetary defense grid. Valen fighters swarmed around him like insects, but his gunners shot them down with mechanical efficiency. On the ground, Lieutenant Beak Hannah and her infiltration corps had already secured the primary targets. They had lost over half their original force in the campaign, but the survivors had become something terrifying. Battle-hardened veterans who moved through enemy territory like shadows of death. Hannah found the planetary governor hiding in a bunker beneath his palace. The Valen noble was surrounded by his personal guard, but they were no match for genetically enhanced human soldiers. The battle lasted less than a minute. "Please," the governor begged, as Hannah approached him. "I had nothing to do with the attack on your world. I am just an administrator. Spare me, and I will help you." Hannah looked at him without emotion. "Did you speak against the attack? Did you protest the murder of 7 billion innocent people?" The governor was silent. "That is what I thought." She raised her weapon. "Earth remembers. By the 12th Pillar world, the Valen Empire was in chaos. FTL communications were failing across entire sectors. Fleets could not coordinate. Reinforcements arrived too late or not at all. The 1,000-year empire was crumbling. Dr. Kim Yuna watched the destruction from the science bay of the Wrath of Earth. The Prometheus Cascade was nearly ready. Soon, she would deliver the final blow. But first, the fleet had to reach the Imperial Throne World. That was where the central FTL hub was located. That was where the Cascade would have the maximum effect. She thought about the years she had spent building this weapon. The sleepless nights, the failed experiments, the colleagues who had died testing prototypes. All of it led to this moment. The moment when humanity would prove that it could not be killed. Admiral Corrin gathered what remained of the Imperial fleet for a final stand. 3,000 warships assembled in orbit around the throne world. It was the largest Valen force in history. Against them, the human retribution fleet numbered only 240 ships. The rest had been lost in the previous battles. The odds seemed overwhelming. But Junho had studied human military history. He knew that battles were not won by numbers alone. They were won by will, by strategy, and by the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Ships he broadcast to the fleet. "This is the final battle. Beyond that planet lies the heart of the Empire. Beyond that lies justice for everyone we have lost. I will not order you to follow me. This must be your choice." The response came immediately. 240 ships signaled their readiness. Not a single one held back.
"Out, then?"
"Let us finish this," Junho said. "For Earth, for the fallen, for humanity." The fleets clashed in the shadow of the throne world. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. Plasma fire filled the void. Ships exploded like fireworks. Thousands died on both sides, Admiral Corrin commanded from his flagship, desperately trying to coordinate his scattered forces. But the humans fought like demons. They broke through his formations, isolated his command ships, and destroyed them one by one. In the chaos, a single human destroyer slipped through the Valen lines. It carried Kim Yuna and the Prometheus Cascade. Its mission was simple: reach the central FTL hub and deploy the device. Everything else was a distraction. The destroyer took heavy damage as it approached the planet. Fires burned through its corridors. Half its crew was dead, but the pilot, a young man named Han Jinsu, kept flying. He had lost his entire family in the bombardment of Earth. He had nothing left to lose. "Almost there," he whispered, as the FTL hub came into view. "Almost there." Behind him, Kim Yuna activated the Cascade. The device hummed with terrible energy. In moments, it would send a signal that would destroy the entire Imperial FTL network. Corrin finally saw the threat. He screamed orders at his remaining ships. Destroy that vessel. Stop them at all costs. But it was too late. The Prometheus Cascade activated, and the Valen Empire began to die. The Prometheus Cascade spread through the Valen FTL network like poison through blood. Relay stations overloaded and exploded. Ships in transit were torn apart by destabilized hyperspace fields. In a single hour, the Empire lost more vessels than they had lost in their entire history of conquest. Admiral Corrin watched his empire die around him. His communications were dead. His fleet was scattered. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned his own technology into a weapon of mass destruction. Captain Kang Junho's flagship emerged from the battle damaged but victorious. 90 human ships remained from the original 300. The cost had been terrible, but they had won.
Ah!
Signal from the Imperial flagship. His communications officer reported. Admiral Korin is requesting to speak with you. Junho accepted the transmission. The Valen Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and broken, nothing like the arrogant conqueror who had ordered Earth's destruction. I wish to discuss terms of surrender, Korin said. Junho was silent for a long moment. He thought about his parents, who had died in the bunkers when he was 5. He thought about the stories he had grown up hearing. The burning cities. The screaming millions. The 7 billion who would never come back. You ordered the death of our world, he said finally. You killed 7 billion innocent people because you could. Because we were weak and you were strong. Now you want mercy? The Empire can still be saved, Korin pleaded. End this destruction, and we can negotiate. We can offer reparations, technology, whatever you want. What we want, Junho replied, is something you cannot give. We want our dead back. We want our children back. We want the world you burned back. He leaned forward, his eyes cold. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. You taught us what happens to the weak in this galaxy. Now we will teach you what happens when humans stop being weak. He cut the transmission and gave the order. The remaining human ships opened fire on the Imperial flagship. Korin and his command staff died in a ball of plasma fire. The last symbol of Valen authority was erased from existence. The war continued for another 18 months. Without their FTL network, the Valen could not coordinate their scattered forces. Sectors that had once been connected now found themselves isolated and alone. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before resistance could form. 12 of the 17 pillar worlds were completely destroyed. The remaining 5 surrendered and were occupied by human forces. The Great Valen Empire, which had conquered 1,000 worlds over 1,000 years, collapsed in less than 2 years. General Park Do-yeon did not live to see the final victory. He died of a heart attack 3 months before the last Valen military force surrendered. Some said the stress of command had killed him. Others said he simply could not rest until he knew humanity was safe. Either way, he died knowing that his mission was nearly complete. The survivors of the Retribution fleet returned to Earth as heroes. They descended through the same atmosphere they had risen from years before. But now the sky was different. Reconstruction had begun. The radiation was fading. New cities were rising from the ashes. New Seoul was built on the ruins of the old capital. It was a city of glass and steel, designed to reach toward the stars that humanity had now claimed. At its center stood the Monument of Remembrance, a black stone pillar inscribed with the names of everyone who had died in the bombardment. It would take years to finish adding all the names. Kim Yuna was there for the dedication ceremony. She was older now, her hair gray and her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes still held the same fierce intelligence that had created the Prometheus cascade. "We did what we had to do," she said in her speech. "We became something terrible because terrible things were done to us. But now the war is over. Now we must decide what kind of species we want to be." The galaxy watched humanity with a mixture of awe and terror. 100 other species had been subjects of the Valen Empire. Some came to Earth with gratitude, thanking the humans for their liberation. Others came with fear, wondering if they would be the next to face human vengeance. A council was formed to decide humanity's future. Admiral Lee Tai-ho argued for isolation. Humanity had suffered enough. They should build defenses, protect their borders, and let the rest of the galaxy sort itself out. Colonel Choi Mingi disagreed. The galaxy was full of threats. If humanity did not project power, another empire would rise to replace the Valen. They needed to be strong, visible, and feared. Lieutenant B. Kanna, now promoted to general, offered a middle path. Humanity should not conquer, but they should not hide either. They should watch, prepare, and make clear that any attack on Earth would be met with total destruction. In the end, it was Kim Yuna who spoke the words that shaped the future. She stood before the council, her voice calm but firm. "We did not survive to become what we destroyed. The Valen ruled through fear and cruelty. We are better than that. We must be better than that." She paused, looking at the faces around her. But we also cannot forget what was done to us. We will not conquer, but we will remember. We will not attack, but we will defend. Any species that threatens humanity will learn the same lesson the Valen learned. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are survivors. And survivors do not die easily. The Terran Confederation was established that year. A new government for a new humanity. They built defense stations throughout their territory, maintained a powerful fleet, and opened diplomatic relations with other species. They were fair trading partners and reliable allies, but everyone knew not to threaten them. The last words of the founding charter became famous throughout the galaxy. They were carved into the hull of every human warship, taught to every human child, remembered by every alien diplomat who visited Earth. We came in peace. We were met with fire. We rose from the ashes. We will never fall again. On the anniversary of the bombardment, people gathered at the Monument of Remembrance. They read the names of the dead and thought about what humanity had become. From the ashes of 7 billion, a new species had been born. Harder, stronger, forever watchful. The stars shone above New Sol, cold and distant, but they were no longer threatening. They were a promise. Humanity had claimed its place among them. And any who doubted that would learn the truth the hard way. Earth remembered. Earth endured, and the galaxy would never forget.